All right. All right, next slide. Thank you. So today we're going to cover pretty much a reminder, right, of all of the ledger requirements that are related to member effectiveness. I'm going to review some NOVA certification of assurances, talk about responsibilities, discuss the CAPE member effectiveness process, and look at some of the pieces that are going to be part of TE, talk about governance, and then have time for, probably have a lot of time for questions. So the next slide. So just a reminder that the, I have to get my picture out of the way. Just a reminder about the legislative requirements that relate to CAPE. Under member effectiveness, this is defined in all of that ed code under 84900 to 920. So I'd recommend that you look at that. And then just a reminder also that all of the assurances are part of the CFAD certification process, and that's in NOVA. Next slide. Here are those 3 assurances that you are all agreeing to when you're receiving the state dollars. One, you're agreeing to the membership of your consortium, what the makeup is, and the decision-making process. You're agreeing to hold public meetings. And also you have reporting requirements. Next slide. Right, I am not going to read all this to you, right? This is a lot of little detail and bullets, and this is all spelled out in the education code. And this is a reminder, those of you that have been our seasoned consortia leads, consortium members, you know all of this information. So just know where you can find it. Next slide. Again, another reminder about public meetings. Public meetings are a significant part of being a consortia. Next slide. And then reporting requirements. So again, those are all, that's all of a reminder for all of you. And so Neil is going to now talk about NOVA. Next slide.
All right. Hi, everyone. So as you know, what Carolyn just reviewed, that is in NOVA. So when you go to certify your allocation schedule that your member district is going to receive and the consortia certifies it, that's what you're certifying to. So so the first bullet is each CAPE consortium member agrees to the following, to follow the list of CAPE assurances when they certify their annual allocation via the CFAD. And CFAD, for those of you who don't know, is the Consortia Fiscal Administration Declaration. That's why we use the term CFAD. So all those things are, you're certifying to that. So if you're in your consortia meetings and somebody's not showing up to your public meetings or not sending the decision maker, it's all in, like Carolyn said, that's all in ed code. And you certified to that when you accepted the funds. So when you click on approve in NOVA as part of that certification, you're confirming that you agree to all those assurances that Carolyn showed you under membership and decision-making, public meetings, reporting requirements. So there's that audit trail. So, you know, if there is something where a member isn't following that, we have that documentation that you did certify that, and it is in NOVA. And then in addition, members are also certifying to any additional consortia rules and procedures as agreed upon by consortium members. Because as you know, when you look at, when we get into governance, there could be additional bylaws, charters that the consortia has agreed upon to hold members accountable in addition to the requirements of the state. So the state assurances are just the bare minimum. Those are the minimum requirements, and consortia can add additions to that, to those bylaws. So next slide, please. So here's just a snapshot of where you would find the assurances. So if you're in the Consortia Fiscal Administration Declaration, and right before you go to certify it, it's called Certification and Assurances, and it lists all those assurances. And then next slide, please. If you scroll down on this page, you'll see the certification. So this is Allen Hancock, it's the first one. So you can see where they have certified those assurances when they certified their CFAT. Okay, next slide, please. And so I'm going to cover this one, but I'm going to turn it over to Veronica to talk about some of the resources. But let me go through this really quick. So consortia responsibility. So this would be at the consortia lead or director or co-chair level. They have to monitor member performance related to the CAPE assurances and identify members for non-compliance. You shouldn't rely on the state to try to catch this, because we're not going to your public meetings. We're not involved in the decision making. So, you know, we can tell when you're not submitting a report, but those other ones, we don't know. We don't have record of your public meetings, or we don't go on your websites to see if they're being scheduled. So the consortia lead director co-chair is responsible to monitor that performance. And if a member isn't complying or having trouble with that, you must provide that member technical assistance. Or if you feel that you can't provide adequate technical assistance, you can reach out to TAP as part of that reasonable intervention, called out an ed code, to help that member. And so once that reasonable intervention, technical assistance, has been attempted and it wasn't successful, then according to ed code, the consortia can deem that member as ineffective and reduce their funds. So we have solid ed code to stand on that. So, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, but that allows you to reduce that member's funds. So if a consortia chooses to go down that route of reducing or decreasing the member's funding, you have to document it. You have to document the reason, technical assistance, or the reasonable intervention you provided, and any public meeting notes on how and when the decision to reduce that member's funding was made. You post all this documentation in NOVA in the document box. It's called the supporting documentation section in NOVA. And that allows for a kind of a record or an audit trail. If anybody, you know, a few years later says, oh, why did you reduce this member's funding? You have that documentation there in the NOVA system. So I'm going to turn it over to Veronica to talk about what resources are available for consortia leads and directors and co-chairs, and then what other technical assistance that TAP can provide.
Thank you, Neil. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm experiencing some Wi-Fi issues, but I'll definitely be brief so that I don't get kicked off. But as you all know, CAP TAP is here to assist. And so our role in the new member effectiveness process is to help consortia leads, co-chairs, co-directors, et cetera, member representatives as well, get in front of reporting and ensuring that deliverables are reported on time, and providing the necessary assistance prior to getting referred to the state by various mechanisms. And so some of the things that we are going to be doing is definitely including more visible notices of upcoming CAP deliverables in the newsletter, direct communication to the field on the website and via social media, et cetera. I don't know, for those of you who receive the newsletter, we have been intentional about not only reminding everyone of when deliverables are due, but also providing some tips and tricks on how to ensure that, you know, deliverables are submitted on time, but then that you're actually able to submit the data in the most effective, efficient, and accurate way. And so we will continue to do that. Another way that we are going to be helping this process is we have compiled various infographics for each of the deliverables. So there's a picture on the slide about the CAP budget and work plan. And so on here, not only are we providing context about what this particular deliverable is, and I know most of you on this call know what the budget and work plan is, but there are always new people coming into the system. And so we want to make sure that everyone has adequate resources. And so not only do we provide context about what the budget and work plan is and when it's due, we also provide tips and tricks on how to submit the budget and work plan, and some other information on here, as well as some things that consortia leads should be monitoring as they are certifying budget and work plans. And so we hope that this new approach will be of value to consortia leads and member representatives, co-chairs, et cetera, as you all are submitting your deliverables. And then we're also creating a process map to show the flow of deliverables prior to the due date. And so one of the things that we that will be on this process map is, for example, preliminary allocations come out at the end of February, but as you're gearing up for the release of the funds, because we know that EDCO says that no member will receive less than what they received in the prior year, we're giving you tips and things to be planning for. So, holding meetings to talk about the funding and, plan for it prior to that particular February deadline. So that's another thing that we are working on. And then we're going to be disseminating notices, and notices as in approaching the deadline 6 weeks prior to the deliverable due date, and at least 3 notices through the various channels that I mentioned before, so that we're reaching everyone and we're reaching you all well before the deliverable is due. And then after a deadline, the CAP office will notify CAP tab of who has or has not submitted deliverables, and then we will begin another notification process on the past due deliverable. But like I said, we want to ensure that we are available to the field and here to assist you all as you are going through this new member effectiveness process, but then also making sure that we help you all stay on track when it comes to submitting deliverables in a timely manner. We are always available via email, phone calls. We're always available to set up one-to-one. So if there's a particular issue we need to work through, or if, let's say, your budget and work plan will not submit or certify for whatever the reason is, and we can't figure out what's going on across emails, it's always easier to just hop on Zoom and kind of go through it through a live demonstration. And so we are available for those types of sessions as well. So definitely utilize us if you have not up until this point. The new program year is starting, and so that's when new practitioners come into adult education or the CAP. And so if there's anyone who needs to be onboarded prior to the official onboard training in September, definitely contact us and we will provide the necessary onboarding sessions and provide the necessary resources so that anyone new coming into the system will be able to be as effective and efficient in their role. And so that's all that I have in terms of how we are going to be responding to this member effectiveness process. Again, we're trying to get in front of the deliverables and make sure that they're submitted on time so that no agency or consortium is referred to the state. And that is all that I have.
All right, thanks, Veronica. And just let me clarify, there's not going to be any surprises. It's not going to be like the day after it's due, all of a sudden the state's going to be saying, hey, that's an ineffective member. No, there's going to be there's a process. So, you'll get notifications saying, okay, we've got this deadline coming up. Then after it's due, you'll get notifications saying, hey, this member didn't submit their deliverable. When it's regarding deliverables, like a report or something, and then there'll be an offer of technical assistance. And then when after all that doesn't work, and that's like, it takes about 30 days for all that to transpire, in some cases more, then it gets referred to the state. So we're not anticipating that many member districts getting referred to the state for member ineffectiveness. But we wanted to put this process in place so you know at a minimum what the state's requiring and what the process is. And then you can build around that as your consortia. So let me just quickly go over the process before I turn it back to Carolyn. So next week, we'll be releasing a memo on this process. And based on the information you're hearing today, it'll all be covered in the memo. And so beginning July 1, Cape Regional Consortium will be notified by the state Cape office through TAP or CASAS of members that have not met some or all the assurances they've certified in order to receive Cape funds. So, you know, we're tracking those things like plans that are due in NOVA, or expenditure reports that are due in NOVA, or if you're K-12 or county office, your TE quarterly reporting, things like that. So just be assured that we're not tracking public meetings or decision-making or things like that. That'll be up to the consortia lead or director. So just remember, you know, after we go through this process, if the member continues to not meet the assurances, then the member will be deemed ineffective, and the state will inform the consortia and their members about that status. If the consortia chooses, it may proceed with reducing the members' funding. So the state's not going to reduce your funding. It's going to be up to the consortia to reduce the funding. So the consortia may reduce the current year's funding or decide to reallocate the members' base allocation for the next year. So there's a couple of ways you could do that if you choose, because if you go to the ed code, it allows for, you know, it says no, like Veronica said, no less than the prior year amount. Well, there's exceptions to getting the same amount as the prior year, and that's ineffectiveness. So if you really wanted to make a point, you could reduce a member's base and they could get less in the following year if they're ineffective members. So there is some teeth to this, and it's been in ed code all along. I just don't think we've had this discussion and put it in writing. So I'm going to turn this over, the next slide over to Carolyn.
All right.
Next slide, please.
Next slide. So similar to, you know, you're used to hearing about monitoring coming from my office as it relates to WIOA. And so we are going to be doing some monitoring and some tracking and following up with what you're doing and in these specific areas. So are you doing your program area reporting? Are you, and of how you're leveraging funds and your instruction hours? That's due in December. And then also, are you doing your quarterly expenditures and then your closeouts? Are you doing your plan certification, your 3-year plan, your annual plan, your member work plan? Are you ensuring that your CFAD and governance items are certified and in NOVA by May 2nd? And then only for the K-12 COEs, are you providing your quarterly data into TOPS Pro? And I know that we have a DIR that you can be looking at each quarter to ensure that everything is status quo in your TOPS Pro entries, meaning are you missing birthdays? Are you missing last names, first names? Are you missing anything within that data reporting? And I know Jay might go into that a little bit today, but that's really everything that goes into TE. So make sure you're looking at your data integrity reports. All right. So I think this is back to Neil or to Jay.
Yeah, I think
Okay,
we're going to
this
turn
one
this
is
one
me,
over.
I believe.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think before reading the slide, it's important to point out what's not on the slide, because I kind of think it's important to just show that most of that quarterly submission that everybody knows and loves is the same, not different. We're using the same TE data submission wizard, the same location on the TE menu, the same data, the same DIR, and the same deliverable due dates. So again, I really think most of this process that you know and love is the same, not different. But to Neil and Carolyn's point, there's now a more formal process that's in writing that we will now follow for agencies that miss the due date, that miss the submission. So I'll just read the bullets off. This is the process we'll be following this year. Is the second day after the due date, we'll send a late reminder email to all agencies who are missing any deliverables. I feel like we've been doing that, but I'm not sure we've necessarily had the second day as the rule of thumb that we've been required to follow. But 2 days later, we will send the late reminder. And then a week after the data submission due date, we'll send another late reminder to all the non-submitters. If 2 weeks passes, we will then send another late submission reminder to the agencies. And the 2 week after the due date, that will include the offer of technical assistance. And then if it's a month later, then we will go ahead and turn the key over to the state CAPE office for more determination on effectiveness. And then they'll determine whether we need more technical assistance or taking any other steps. Again, I think this process is straightforward. Again, the things that people ask about are the things that have not changed, I think, mostly, but there is this protocol. So I'll just pause for questions, but that's all I have.
All right. There are quite a few questions. I tried to answer some, but I think we're going to have plenty of time, so we might just want to go back to them. There was one question, Jay, that was interesting. So Wendy asked, what is the status of student ID numbers from the state? Should we be requiring SSN from participants now? And I haven't heard anything, but maybe Jay or Carolyn have heard something, or maybe it's just status quo.
So I can jump in, Jay, on this. So certainly we would love for you to be able to collect student social security numbers, because we are doing a data match with all of our adult ed data and the unemployment insurance. I don't know, it's something EDD does. I can't remember what it's called, the UI data.
The base wage file.
Yeah, but it's also UI.
Oh,
that's where you
okay.
get it. So we do need social security numbers. Otherwise, you'll be doing the survey, which is the other piece that is open now for CAPE agencies to be doing, to survey students. So I would encourage it and collect as many as you can get.
Okay, so we just have a few more slides to do. We'll go through those slides and then we'll go back to the chat because there are a few questions in there. But I want to just get through these last few slides about the governance certification, which ties into member effectiveness. It's kind of a nice little package there. And so you can go to the next slide. Okay, so starting next year, 2022, each member and consortium will be required to certify annually the CAPE governance documentation. In the old days, I think we just had this at the beginning of this program in 2015. So you'd have to go in and answer the questions in the governance document and post it in the Nova system. And that was done like around, I think it was 2015, 16. And we never really had it updated. Some consortia voluntarily updated it, but it wasn't a standard practice. And we realized, things change in consortia and governance needs to be updated on a regular basis. So with that, we are going to take that consortia document regarding governance, and we're pretty much, those questions are still valid. We're going to add a couple of new ones and we'll go over that. And then you'll be required to certify and submit that with your CFAD every year. So that May 2nd date that you submit your CFAD will also be the date that you're certifying to your governance. And so let's see, the questions are the same. And it'll be so this won't be available until maybe we'll have it maybe by the beginning of the year. So you'll get maybe to look at it in January, anticipating in May when you certify it. We might be able to show it a little sooner depending on how the programming goes. But you'll get plenty of lead time to review the document and start working on those governance questions that I'll go over in a second. Next slide, please. So here are those questions. The first question is about membership. And then the second question, I'm not going to read all these, but these are all based on Ed Code. And these are part of the original governance document that you guys submitted when you started your consortia. And so the second one is about fund reporting. And that's part of the, like Carolyn said, the program area reporting and your leverage funds. And this is also part of the 3-year plan question about evaluation of your funds, things like that. So this shouldn't be anything new. The third question is about, having an official designee on your consortia board, and if they've been designated by their governing board. So when a decision is made, it doesn't have to go back to the school board. It's made by that official designee in the consortia. And then, of course, the last one is participation in decisions made by the consortia, and that ties back to Ed Code and ties back to the assurances. So you can see how all this is connected. So next slide, please. So of course, voting, we'll have a question on voting, decision approval, decision-making model, public notice of meetings, public comment, and then adequate notice. How do you consider input comments by members of the public? So all these things shouldn't be new because they're all part of the education code, and we're part of the original governance document for CAPE. So next slide, please. And I think there's 2 other slides on the questions. There are a lot of questions, but this kind of ties into those assurances. So you can see where we're going with this. Back to another question, that first one, bullets on distribute comments to the public, a process for consortia will solicit and consider comments. So this is all and from various partners and adult ed providers. And then how did you determine the approval of the distribution schedule for the CFAD? And then has the consortia designated a fund administrator, or are you going direct funding? So that's pretty much a, that's an easy question to answer. And then something that not many people have, but we stress this, is how will members join? How will members leave? Or how will a member be dismissed from the consortia? What are those bylaws or governance around that? And then next slide, please. And then there are the questions we're going to add. And so the first one is, how does the consortium monitor and administer carryover funds? Do you have a bylaw that governs carryover? So that would be a new one. And then how does your consortia define member effectiveness? What bylaws does your consortia have addressing member effectiveness? So just remember, there's no right or wrong answer, but this is how you're running your consortia, so your governance. So these questions help us form the framework for how you run your consortia. Now, everyone is not going to have the same answer. It's going to be different depending on the regional consortia and the member makeup and things like that. So you will still see some variation. And then the last question is, does the consortium have a formal document detailing its work beyond the questionnaire, and that would be, if you have additional bylaws, decision-making models, charter, whatever else you've added in addition to these questions, you might have additional bylaws. And next slide, please. And so I think that's it on the slides, but I saw a lot of questions come in. So let's open it up. And let's go back up on the questions. I don't know if Holly or Veronica, I think we left off with, was it Lonzi? Is that starting with Lonzi? Is that where we should begin? Did we cover all the questions before Lonzi?
I think so. Did you cover, I don't think you covered Emma's question regarding the public meetings.
Okay, I think,
Ye-
well, Ilsa put a link in there to the current public meetings, which kind of gave us an update. I haven't looked at it though, so we'll have to maybe send that out later, but thank you for sharing that, Ilsa. Emma's question was, as consortium lead, what benchmarks or red flags am I looking for in certifying reports or looking at deliverables? So, I mean, the fact that the due date is your, first red flag, but I think TAP, Veronica, you guys are going to give like helpful hints on like the financial reports and things like that, right? Is that, and maybe that will help, consortia leads on what to look for when they're certifying financial reports or things like that. Veronica, do you have anything more to add on that one?
Right, that's correct. So one of the things that on that infographic that we had showed was, for example, on the budget and work plan, when the object codes go into the red and the report is still being certified, the type of helpful tip we will provide is to make sure that the agency completes a budget revision prior to submitting and certifying that budget and work plan. So those types of things, Emma and everyone else who's on the webinar, those are the types of items will be, and on that infographic will be spelling out for you to look for. And then also, Neil, the dashboards, did you want to go into that?
Oh, if you want to.
Okay, so the NOVA system is being enhanced to include downloadable dashboards where consortia leads, pretty much everyone with NOVA access will be able to go into these particular dashboards, and you'll be able to see, for example, allocations. You'll be able to see, in addition to the FIFO chart, you'll be able to see how much money has been spent by program year, how much money is left over. For the expenditure reports, you'll be able to see expenditures by object code. The budget and work plan, one of the things that consortia leads were looking for prior to certifying the budget and work plan were the targets, to make sure that the members are putting in appropriate spending targets. And so you'll be able to access all of that data and be able to download it into an Excel spreadsheet and be able to track it on your end. And so we'll be going, once the enhancements are complete, we'll have a series of trainings on how to use those dashboards in tandem with the infographics, so that consortia leads will have a better source of data to be able to track those different areas within the CAP deliverables. So more to come there.
Right. And for those of you with large membership in your consortia, we'll also have the ability to look at who hasn't submitted their reports, at least in NOVA. And so you can click on to see who's, hasn't certified or submitted, things like that. That'll also be part of the dashboard. That'll be probably helpful for the state or for TAP to kind of see who needs to be reminded about their certification or submission. So that'll be available as well. Okay, so I'm just going to move on to.
I think you're at Lonzi now.
Okay. All right. There we go. It's just tough moving the cursor. Okay, so Lonzi asked, does the protocol apply to the districts or consortia? So the protocol, the ed code is geared towards the member. And so it's member ineffectiveness. And so member reduction of funds. And so we'll be looking at member certification, member submission. And so that's where the ed code leads us to funding reduction, is at the member level. We'll also be tracking at the consortia level as well through the state. So let's say you have, any number of members that are becoming ineffective or requiring technical assistance. And, so we'll try to see what's going on in that consortium, if they're constantly having, late certification or needs of technical assistance. And so, but the protocol, to answer Lonzi's question, the protocol applies to the member districts. But we'll be providing technical assistance at consortia level, at district level as well. And so the technical assistance won't be limited to just the member at the district level. We can also provide that at the consortia level if needed.
Thank you, Neil. And just to add to that, also the protocol that Jay was describing, the CASA's notices, are they going to the districts? And if they are, how is the consortium to know?
Right. I think that's a good point, Lonzi. So we'll ask CASAs to make sure they CC the consortia lead or director or co-chair on that, so they're not operating in a vacuum. So because it's going to require kind of a partnership between the state vendor or the state TAP or the state agency and the consortia and the member district to get everybody back on track. So if we isolate the consortia lead and don't tell them, I don't think that's a very effective practice. Right. So we will close the loop on that and make sure the consortia directors are included in those notifications on any of the member effectiveness correspondence at the state or at the vendor level.
Yeah.
Jay, does that your understanding as well?
That sounds great. I mean, I was going to answer that technically it's usually going to be the district, just because, with the data side of it, we always go by agency, not consortium. But yes, that add-on to make sure folks like Lonzi are copied whenever that comes up is definitely a good addition to the protocol.
All right. Any other questions, Lonzi?
No, I did have a question later on, adding if the state is planning on conducting audits of consortia.
Carolyn, I don't think we're planning
No.
to conduct audits, but I just want to confirm that.
No, we're not. And it's not, there's, we don't necessarily have the funding to do that. And it's not in the ed code.
So I guess
we'd like to come visit all of you though and see how you're doing, but yeah.
Yeah, stay tuned, I guess. More to be continued if we ever get funding for that.
Yeah.
Okay, and then Kelly had a question about SSN. Did you want to unmute, Kelly?
Sure. So it's kind of two-part. Hi, everybody. One is, so we're doing a data match in the UI wage claims. When do we anticipate that we might actually get some data back in terms of what our employment earning gains or employment placement numbers are looking for based on that match? That's my first question.
So,
okay, so
go ahead.
I was going to direct it to Jay. Because I know for our WIOA Title II agencies, they were able to start seeing that in their TE reports. And so Jay, are we going to make that available for CAPE non-WIOA agencies who are in TE?
I think it
Oh,
should
Kelly, I
be the
think, Kelly,
same.
you're
I
in
mean, I guess I
TE,
want to double check with a couple people before I sign my
Okay.
name in blood on that, but the process for CAPE agencies shouldn't be any different. For the most part, I think all of those CAPE agencies are in that same bundle of data. You know, if you're a non-WIOA CAPE agency, those SSNs are in that same bundle
Mhm.
that goes to EDD. So the populating of TE that comes after that match would be the same situation.
So they should be able to see that now, correct? Because
Yes.
wasn't Debelina posting that? Okay. And Kelly,
Right.
you're one of our Title II grantees.
Yes,
Right?
and so I guess this, and we don't have to get into it, but this makes me think, so we haven't for CAPE and for WIO, we haven't been, because we do a data merge, we haven't been transitioning all of our social security numbers from our MIS system because of issues that our district has with like third-party vendors. So we have to make a justification on why we can actually do that merge with social security numbers, and this gives us good justification for doing so.
Okay, yeah, that, and I just recently got some information from the feds that I think will be helpful, that we're going to be sending out to everyone about the WIOA Title II requirement of, there's not a WIOA requirement to collect social security numbers. There's a WIOA requirement to report whether someone has a job and what their median income is, right? That's the requirement. How do you get that information? Well, the best way to get that is through the social security number and a base wage file match. So, so we're going to be sending out that guidance. So that should
Okay.
help as well. Okay.
So thank you. That's one question. And then this kind of gets into, so one of the things that we find in our programs is that as students, because we do ask that question also, not only in the TE, but in our application to our school. And so just, I'm wondering if there's any like scripts that people have developed for like, how do you explain to a student why it's important to, like, they don't have to provide their social security number, but why it's important, like what's the benefit to them? So we've had this conversation of both with our instructors as well as with our students, like random school, you know, asking them for personal information. Right. How do you justify that?
So it's, so I will tell you, I saw Adele on here earlier. So Adele has put together, along with Cindy Gleason from Fontana, they've put together these great videos that are related to the student survey that we're doing. However, the reason that those students complete the survey could be the same reason that you ask a student to provide you with the SSN, because it helps your program. It helps those students that are coming after them, right? And it allows the school to be able to celebrate student successes. So I think you could use some of those and use some of those from those videos that are going to be posted on the CASA's website sometime soon.
Another tip I'll just add is one I hear all the time that does seem to be pretty effective is agencies tell students, if you provide your SSN, then we don't have to bother you once you leave with the survey. And a lot of people say that's a real effective way to convince them it's a good idea.
Yeah, that's the other one. Thanks, Jay, for remembering that one.
All right, and then Kelly, you had a question about if we have bylaws, do we submit those? And so what'll happen in that governance document at the last question, if you have a link to a posted governance document that has additional bylaws, or if there are just a few bylaws, you can include them at the last part of that governance document. But we would like to see if there's any additional decision-making questions or models or bylaws or charters that you have in addition to the CAPE, education code tying to the assurances. You would be required to submit those as part of that governance certification. So that would help us. All right, and then Ilsa says, what are the rules relative voting power of members? So I don't think, Carolyn, did we ever get a ruling on I don't think we ever got a clear legal definition on the voting powers of members. I think it was up to I think we had conflicting legal opinions on that.
Mhm.
And so, I don't know, do you have anything new on the voting powers of members?
No, maybe we should try again.
And so basically, we know we have a little variation. I know LA Consortia did a wonderful survey of consortia governance structure and voting structures out there. And I think there's just a handful of consortia, maybe less than 5, that don't have a one district, one vote structure. They have a different structure, but for the majority, I guess the super majority, or even the most consortia have that one district, one vote structure. So, but we don't have a consensus on a legal opinion. We had one agency that went one way and another state agency went a different way. And so we don't have consensus yet. So that's something we'll have to revisit, Ilsa. All right, so Emma asked, does the designee need to be named in the memo to the respective board, or can it be the job title? For example, campus president is a voting member. That's kind of in the weeds. It just says official designee. So I guess, I don't know how people have handled the official designee. Does it have to be kind of on district letterhead or something from the district saying so-and-so is my official designee for my district for the adult education consortia? It'd be interesting to hear if anybody has any examples of what they've used in their consortia with their various school districts.
So
So
Neil,
feel
if I
free
could
to-
add, if I could just add to that,
Yeah.
question. My question is, because I do have a member right now who just accepted a new position and she's going from president to chancellor. So we're going to be getting a new president. But my question is, because I've seen mixed in the past, is I do send an official memo to that board saying so-and-so will be your
Mhm.
representative on the executive board for the consortium. So moving forward, do we need to name the person or name the position that is the voting position?
I mean, there's nothing in ed code for the state to hang its hat on, but I think as a good practice, I mean, you would want to be clear, right? And whatever helps you as a consortia director manage the consortia, I would ask for that information that makes it helpful to you. So what
And
do
the
you?
reason, well, the reason why I also bring it up is because right now, as you're talking about the types of responsibilities we have as leads. So if there is a situation, I'm going to first approach who the voting member is because they're accepting the funds on behalf of their district. So
Right.
that's the reason why I'm asking is moving forward when you're looking closely at some of these, who's submitting reports, who's not. We know that officially the voting member is the one who's certifying in Nova. That's the reason why I ask in terms of tying it to the name or tying it to a position.
So what would be a best practice in your opinion?
Well, because of the types of dollar amounts, I mean, our consortium is well funded. I feel more comfortable with the name because then that person is the voting member. And if there is some kind of a situation where TAP needs to be involved with, performance or anything like that, then there's an actual person that we could reach out to at a district instead of just a position or someone who's new.
Yes.
But that's just, like I said, and because moving forward, I need to do this in the next 2 months. I just want to make sure I'm clear on that what
Yeah.
we're doing does align with what my responsibility is as a consortium lead.
Yeah, let me bring Veronica in there. So Veronica, Emma's question, so we have a member rep in Nova. Do we have any idea if that member rep aligns to the official designee, or is that the responsibility of the consortia to submit what they, as a member rep, as the official designee?
That's the consortium role. We just go by what's listed. And when we're
Right.
looking at deliverables, et cetera, because of the way the system is set up, we look for the first person that's listed. Sometimes for a consortia, that first person listed is not even the member representative. It's someone in like fiscal, someone who submits and certifies the reports. So yeah.
Okay, so it might be a good practice, like Emma's suggesting, is to get that right name and then make sure it aligns with who you're dealing with, and
Mhm.
then make sure that's the same person in Nova, because when the state is going to reach out to somebody, it's going to be that person, and maybe not, is it the official designee? It sounds like TAP sometimes gets somebody that might not even be that official designee. So
Yeah.
I think something like that would be great to, as a best practice to look into, of how you're aligning that official designee with all the responsibilities of certification in the NOVA system. So,
Okay, thank you.
yeah, thanks, Emma. So Michelle asked, do we need the governance document if these answers are included in our bylaws? So I think, Michelle, you'll be certifying into NOVA these questions. So it won't be like you'll be uploading a document. You'll actually be filling this out in NOVA, kind of like as we move to the 3-year plan. You'll be entering information in a text box. So what you could do is just copy and paste those over if they're already included in your bylaws. Was that your question, Michelle, that you wanted answered? Or maybe I totally missed it.
Yep, that's perfect. Thank you.
Okay. All right. And then Wendy wants us to visit. Yeah, I might visit tomorrow because it's going to be 105 here in Sacramento. We'll definitely take you up on that, Wendy. Okay, Shamila asked, has there been an update on the okay, is it carryover? I think she meant carryover.
Yeah, I think she's
Allowable
referring to carryover.
percentage. Last number I heard was 15%. Is that confirmed? So just to update, the Assembly Bill, I think it was 1491, if I remember, that got shelved because the sponsor had too many bills and they had to pick only a small subset of bills. And so that one didn't go forward. So we're back to the targets of 2 years, kind of like the fiscal management guide has, and 15, 30, 45, 60 that we're shooting for. And so nothing's really changed, although we'll be monitoring this quite a bit. We will have carryover reports, like Veronica said, in NOVA. And so we'll be giving consortia leads, directors, co-chairs more tools and access to more information on carryover, and providing technical assistance in that field. So thank you for asking that, because I don't think we've provided that update. Let's see. Okay, so Adele, if you want to put your email in the chat, if you're willing to correspond with anybody about some of those great resources you have.
I did put my email in the chat
Oh,
already, and I'm very happy to share my PowerPoint that has all the collected videos so far, along with our ideas for how to improve your surveys.
great. Thank
Yeah,
you so
so why
much
don't
for sharing.
Yeah, put that in the chat too, Adele, if you have
Okay,
it.
I will do that. Yes.
Okay, and then Dana says minutes from board meeting where the person was approved with specific name. That's how she documents that official designee. Board minutes, right? Okay, good suggestions here. And then Adele referenced the PowerPoint and the video link.
I'm copying and
then
pasting that right now.
Okay. And then Jeff adds, it must be a specific person, kind of like Emma said, who is named, not a role. So just keep that in mind. Thank you, Jeff. And then Jeff also added, the governing board designates specific persons to act on its behalf. It does this with all fiscal related delegations. So good information that Jeff's sharing there. And then Wendy adds, we require the name of the person being appointed by the school district. And then Ute says, for the board, does it state specific person who is named in the official, and then Jeff responds. Okay, so a lot of good dialogue here in the chat.
Did we answer
And,
Kristen's question about, do we need the governance document if these answers are in the bylaws?
Yeah, well, I told Michelle that that you can copy and paste them into Nova.
Right, okay.
Because we'll still have to enter it into the text boxes, but they can just copy and paste. Okay, and then Kristen asked, what was the answer to the question, do we need the governance document if, oh, that's your question. Okay, sorry, Carolyn, you're way ahead of me. So Kristen, yes, you do need to copy and paste. If you already have those bylaws, just copy and paste that into Nova, and then you certify that, so it's documented. And then Stephanie says, if there's no change from year to year, do we need to submit that? Sorry if this already been answered. No, that's a good question, Stephanie. So each year you'll be required to certify that. And so I think I'll check with the programmers to see, does it wipe its slate clean, or does it carry in your governance document or what you typed in the text boxes from prior year? So all you need to do is go in and update that. I'll check on that, Stephanie. That's a good point.
Okay, and my concern too was just having like that, because the board approval for the district, like if, because there's no change, but if I need to have my board reapprove that, it's still me as the person, then I just want to make sure that I get that on their agenda for the August meeting. So it's done right away. Because coming in and learning, I was a little bit late on that before, and I want to make sure I'm on time.
Okay, so what we'll do next year is the governance document will be due May 2nd. And so we'll post that in Nova, hopefully maybe this fall, if everybody needs to get a head start on it, just so you can look at it. And if you need some kind of official approval before certifying it, we'll make sure we get that information out well ahead of time, so you have plenty of time to work on that. And then
Adele, there's some issues with the permissions on the link. And I see your hand is up.
I'm
also.
allowing them as soon as they come in. I honor the request for permission
Got it.
to
Okay.
view, so that way it doesn't mess with the video. I did want to mention something else too. I'm on an ISD or integrated service delivery team with the County of San Bernardino, who had seen our videos, and one of the participants in the video is in something we did with them, and they are actually asking that we create some videos with myself and Fontana to describe mutual benefit to both systems to get more buy-in to an integrated service delivery. So I thought that was cool.
Yeah, that's great. Boy, our little tiny project that we started, right, has really exploded. Yeah, that's great.
So
right.
that's it. That's all. And I'm going to continue just allowing people in.
Okay.
Right. Let me get back to Stephanie's question. So Stephanie, are you saying that with the governance document, each time you update it, you have to go back, everybody has to go back to their school board, or is it you're talking about the consortia board?
My school board. So the board
Okay.
we're under the Yosemite Unified umbrella. And so like when we updated the form to have like me and then my alternate person, that like my board has to vote on that.
Oh,
And so it looks like Sherry's answering my question. So I think I'm good.
okay. Yeah, because we don't ask in the governance document that we'll put in Nova, we don't ask for the official designee, we just ask what's the process.
Yeah.
So hopefully that won't be too much of a burden.
No, and I think, Sherry I've now worked with her for 2 years, so she understands Stephanie speak. And so she answered my
Right.
question. So I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay. And then Jody says this is how we have our members approved as well. Okay, so we still have plenty of time if anybody wants to unmute and ask questions. You don't have to put it in the chat unless you're not able to unmute, but we've got TAP here, we've got CASAS, we have CDE, so we have Carolyn. So plenty of time to try to stump us with your questions.
Neil, this is Jody, and this has nothing to do with Kate, but I have a question while all of you thinkers are all together. Has there been any decision on what's going to happen with Perkins adult core indicators? Carolyn had talked about working with someone in the adult ed office to have those, what used to be the core performance or the core adult ed indicators, they were changing. So when we wrote Perkins last spring, there was nothing, you know, there was no evaluation tool about what, how, you know, how many certificates or has anything moved forward on that? Is there any resolution?
So Jody, you know, we started working on that, and then our division director went to the California Workforce Development Board.
Well,
And
that
now we
would drive
haven't-
them to the Workforce Development Board.
So, so Pradeep left and went over there. So, and then Michelle, whose office is the Perkins office, went to Sac County office of it. So, so we're sort of in a spot where we're not starting over, but I have to bring people up to speed on what we're trying to do. So
Yeah, that's not a
hopefully we'll
problem.
get something.
I think it's just just having some clarification so that we're not hunting for that data if it's not there or it's not being collected when we're doing the Perkins. I think it's confusing.
So the data, you're reporting your data in TE.
In TE, correct. But we're
And
not,
so-
but what are we using when we write Perkins? You know, it used to be when you wrote Perkins, you had that data that you responded to. So if that's no longer,
so you're talking about in the Perkins application, the annual application?
because it's changed with 5.
Right,
And
right.
there's
All
no
right.
data to respond to. And that's okay, just if we
Okay.
know that, so it doesn't, you know,
Right.
make everyone kind of get
Well,
crazy.
you'll
that there's no
have data, right, you'll have data next year. So then we'll be able to pull those reports out of TE. We'll have that data next year. Just because we haven't been, some people have been really good about putting all their CTE data into TE, but not everyone has. And so those of you that are Perkins funded, you'll be able to run a report. Jay, I'm not putting you on the spot, but maybe make a note of this. You'll be able
That's
to run a
exactly what I was
report.
thinking. We need a training, Jay.
You'll be able to run a report so that you can look at that data so you can respond to the questions in
Perfect.
your application.
Perfect.
Right. The
Okay,
short
thank you
answer
so
is
much.
everybody marks classes and individuals affected by Perkins as that special program's Perkins. So, you know, outcome wise, it's pretty similar. So you're really just filtering the data for the people touched by Perkins and seeing what they accomplish like you would any other group of students.
Hey, Veronica, could you stop sharing so we can see everyone? I was thinking we don't need that. Thank you. Very
Okay,
helpful.
all right, any other CAPE questions? Jody slipped in a Perkins question, free of charge, of course.
can
we're
you
not
guys
gonna
I
hear me?
just had to, sorry, couldn't help myself.
All right,
You
Ryan,
guys
did
hear
you
me?
have a
Hey, you
question?
said stump the
Yeah,
panel,
yeah,
so
Ryan.
hey, somebody has to rise to the challenge, right?
Okay, Ryan has a question.
All right, so here's mine. So with the equity as a CAPE priority area, I just want to stick a fork in this idea. Will there be some type of equity reports we can generate out of TE that kind of align the information of race, ethnicity, gender, and performance, or with WIOA barriers, where we can start to kind of look at our information through a equity lens, but not have to try and get every member to pull separate pieces of data. Nobody has the manpower to really create something. But if we had a simple report, something that's kind of like the CAPE tables, but
There's, oh, sorry, go
there's
ahead.
something like that in the plan. Go ahead, I'm listening, Jay.
I'm saying, I I don't know if there's one that has the exact specifications you just spit out, but there is a report called NRS Ad Hoc Crosstabs. I don't know about the catchiness of the title, but it is a relatively new report. And it does allow you to basically dial up a report using all of those various, fields you just mentioned. The one that I've been recommending is using barriers to employment, because that obviously has a lot of those different, hard to reach, hard to serve groups. You can use things like race and ethnicity or native language or other fields that you're using in TE all the time, though. So there's lots of examples we've given where you can do cross-tab barriers to employment with instructional program or race and ethnicity with the 12 federal NRS levels. And, you pretty much, you name it, you can cross-tab it by selecting your own axis and selecting your own y-axis and comparing, field by field and pretty much an infinite number of ways.
And that's what I was kind of hoping to avoid, was have something that was universal, that we could do it in a sort of a CAPE table format that's across the board. And is the one you mentioned, that's accessible with the CAPE manager level access?
I think you need the agency level access because it's all about student level data. To your first point, though, I think if we have certain combinations that either are required by the state or are just catchy combinations that everybody agrees are the ones they really need the most, we could probably look at adding some, kind of preset filters. We've done that for some of the core performance issues where there's just certain ways of looking for stuff that tend to be more popular than others. So we usually do that by having preset filters. So if for whatever reason, my example of barriers by instructional program proves to be a well-used or just generally popular option, we could have that as a preset filter. So sure, you don't have to use
Right.
those movers in the setup window. I assume that's probably the step you're trying to avoid.
Yes. So even if it's at like the 10,000 foot level, I'm thinking like, let's say if the CAPE office is preparing as a section of its annual report, a lens on equity, what would the factors be that you would look at the state level that you would report to the legislature and then bring that back down to us so we can mirror that?
Okay, I mean, I think the ones I've mentioned are the ones likely, but I'll let Neil or Carolyn comment, I guess, on whether there is one or two that are the ones everybody must use.
All right. Okay, that's it for me. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Ryan. No, I think you bring up an excellent point about looking at data as it relates to equity, and so I think that this is a great discussion for both CAPE and WIOA. And so, Jay, maybe we can add this to our advisory meeting.
Sure.
That's coming up, and we can start at that point looking at the various data elements. And then perhaps there is a way to generate some type of a report that we call an equity report that has all those pieces in there that you don't have to go in and create yourself by picking all of the different
I'll add, there was a workshop
variables.
mid to late May. I forget the exact date. There was a data dive workshop titled Barriers and Equity. That was one of that data dive series. I mean, yes, it does get into the setup window and have you use those movers, like we were suggesting, but it was a presentation that gave lots of examples, and it was intended anyway to kind of get at the issues you're asking about with, probably a half dozen or so different examples that seem, that at least in my myopic mind of minds make sense for it.
Right, and it could be that we do some type of a generic type of a report, and then still give agencies that option to move things around or add things in or take things out if they wish, right? But at least a place to start is what I think Ryan is asking for.
But I'll just say, Ryan, if you have a specific example that you really, really, really love, you can certainly send it, and we can, maybe that be our inaugural preset filter, and we can see how that works and take it from there.
Copy that. Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks.
Hey,
Thanks,
Jay,
Ryan.
we have a quick question from Paul. Paul asks, following up on the NRS crosstab discussion, can we owe it to members-
Absolutely. I guess that, well, that's one of a few reasons why the title is doesn't exactly roll off the tongue. We use NRS in the title because we feel like those reports include just about any TE field under the sun. And we define that by saying any field that's ever conceivably used for the Fed tables. If that field has any role, it's on the NRS crosstabs. So that's why we, call it that, because that's basically what we used as the big menu for all the different fields that are included in the report. But that said, yes, it's equally usable for non-WIOA and WIOA, and I'll add it's equally applicable and useful in my opinion.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I don't know if Adele's still on, but Kristen had a question. Oh, it's about the permissions. Oh, I think she already
And then
answered.
it looks like there's a quick question from Paul.
No, that was the one that Jay just answered.
Oh,
I
got
think
it. Got it.
I think we've answered all the questions unless somebody else has another one. Or we could give you 15 minutes back of your Friday afternoon.